I'm in the big leagues, told him don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding a road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwing the fastball. Just too quick for it, peeling off like the whip orange. Seen they effort this piss poor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with zero basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA. Opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I am your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, a.k.a. AA Ron. And ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. Folks, I hope you have had a fantastic week. I have had an incredible week, and I hope you have had a similar one. So we got plenty of hoops action to talk about, and let's start. We are in the month of March. Now, for all of you basketball fans out there, the month of March, is definitely dedicated to college basketball. So as the National Basketball Tournament creeps up here in a little bit, I'll give a little love here and there to college basketball because I also love watching college basketball as well. I am a Duke fan, so hate me if you want to. It's totally fine. I love Duke. Coach K. This is his last season. Shout out to one of the greatest coaches that the game has ever seen. But we will be talking NBA hoops today, and like I said, college hoops later on in the month. So don't miss out on that. But let's start today's episode with the team that everybody knows that I love to hate on, the Los Angeles Lakers. So if you are a Lakers fan, I'm probably going to break your heart, but I can't break your heart worse than the Lakers team play. But the season has been a struggle, a straight up struggle bus for the Los Angeles Lakers. They are currently in the 9th spot in the Western Conference with a 27-34 record. 7 games below 500, and we are creeping up with I think like 20 games left in the season, something like that. So now you have to finish in the top 10 to be a play-in team. So if you finish between 7th and 10, you're in the play-in. And then, those 4 teams jockey for the last 2 spots, 7 and 8. The Lakers are only 2.5 games ahead of the 11th spot, who is actually the Blazers. So they are closer to being out of the play-in than they are being closer to the standard playoffs. So they have not had a good stretch of games recently, dating back to before the All-Star break. They have a record of, over the past 12 games, of 3-9. So winning 3 wins in just the last 12 games, which is pretty bad. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. LeBron James, during that stretch, has been balling out. Doing his thing. Can't say that LeBron has not been playing well. He is averaging 29.1 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game, and 5.8 assists per game. But obviously, if you're following the NBA, no Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been gone for the past couple weeks, and he is going to be out a few more weeks. I believe it was a severe ankle sprain that he is currently dealing with, amongst other injuries that he unfortunately has had. So no help for LeBron James, pretty much. It's pretty much just him out there. Like I said, no Anthony Davis. Rookie Austin Reeves is arguably your second best player. And don't get me wrong, Austin Reeves is a good player. He plays hard pretty much every night, which is more than I can say for some of the Lakers team. But as your second guy in the Western Conference, I don't think that's going to cut it. Now, during this stretch of games, some notable games that they have lost, some that they really arguably should have won. They got beat by the LA Clippers, not once, but twice. And now the Clippers are playing without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard they have been for the past, couple months now. So they lost 2 times to the Los Angeles Clippers, their in-town rival. They got beat by Portland, like I said, who is in that 11th spot. So losing to Portland does them no favors as Portland creeps up closer to that play-in spot. And they got destroyed by the New Orleans Pelicans. I think they lost by 25 or something like that. It was 123-98 the other night. So the Los Angeles Lakers have, like I said, it has been a struggle bus for them. So I want to say, when I was doing my research for the show, I was like, would it be a hot take? I don't know if it's a hot take to say that I think the Lakers will make the play-in. I think they'll be a play-in team, finish between 7 and 10. But I think they're going to lose I think they'll lose either one or two, or one or, the other play-in game, because essentially if they finish ninth or 10th and they lose, they're done. If they finish 7th or 8th and they lose, they get another spot. They get another chance for that 8th spot. So, but I don't think they're gonna make it. I don't think they're gonna lose. Now, the only saving grace that the Lakers have, which obviously is a big one. I mean, obviously they have LeBron James. LeBron James is a champion. He's a 4-time champion, arguably one of the greatest players that we have ever seen. Not of this generation, but any generation. Definitely top 5 in my all-time. But, so you've got LeBron James. So, I have a hard time counting him out, saying that, he can get you a game, of course. But these teams in the play-in spot, they're no scrubs either. Like, they're hungry. Everybody plays up against the Lakers because it's the Lakers. It's a historic franchise. Everybody wants to beat them. So, Anthony Davis is still expected to be out for a few more weeks, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we've only got about 5 weeks left in the regular season. So the playoffs, I believe, start the second week of April or something like that, almost the third week of April. So we don't have a whole lot of time left. The Lakers, with the way it's been, I don't see their season improving significantly. Now, LeBron did say, as I was going through the research for the show, in their loss to the Dallas Mavericks, LeBron said, hey, we still have games to play. Until you stop me out, cut my head off, bury me 12 feet under, then I got a chance. So that's my confidence. And I get it. LeBron has definitely had his struggles in the past. So, he's ready to go. But is the rest of the team? Is Malik Monk? Is Trevor Ariza? Is Avery Bradley? Austin Reeves? Can you definitively count on these guys to get you in the playoffs, past a play-in, but in the playoffs? And even if you get the playoffs, what good is it if you play Phoenix or Golden State in the first round? As it stands right now, even with Anthony Davis back, I don't see this Lakers team beating any one of them. So, what good is it to get to the playoffs and lose in the first round if you're the Los Angeles Lakers at this point? So, LeBron has carried teams in the past. We all know that he has a history of carrying teams. You remember, as a Spurs fan, you remember that 07 Cavaliers team was trash. But we can't, nor should we, I should say, expect LeBron to carry a team at 37 years old, year 19. It shouldn't be his responsibility at this point in his career to carry a team kicking and screaming into the playoffs. But it's not looking good for the Lakers, unfortunately. Fortunately for me, because I love to see them lose. But it's not looking good for the Lakers, so we shall see what happens with them. But let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about my second favorite team, my favorite Eastern Conference team, the Boston Celtics. Now, if you remember, in earlier episodes this season, I was getting on to Boston pretty good. They were underachieving. They didn't really have any sense of urgency at all, and their chemistry just looked kind of off. They were just underperforming. And I was like, what the heck is going on with this Boston team? They were 17-19 at one point of the season, and people around, correspondents, analysts, all these people you see on TV, and myself included, were debating whether the pairing between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum should come to an end. Should it be over? Are they not meshing? Is it redundant with, those, the two wing players? I was one of those people, not saying that they should, but I was one of those people that was, contemplating it. I was like, hey, is this just not working anymore? But to their credit, they have turned it around and definitely made me a believer. So they are currently 6th in the Eastern Conference right now with a record of 37-27. So that is an impressive turnaround. They are actually tied for 5th place with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, they're playing the Memphis Grizzlies right now. I am, as you know, recording this on Thursday night, and I should have had it pulled up, but they are playing the Memphis Grizzlies right now. I think that they beat them 120-107. So now they're actually in the 5th spot. So the Boston Celtics are now currently 5th in the Eastern Conference with a 38-27 record. So, which is pretty impressive turnaround. First-year coach Ime Udoka has raved about this group. As I was doing the research for the show, I was looking at a quote that he had said, "We took our bumps early." Oh, or he says, the team has always responded well to being challenged. Even the games we were losing early on, I was always optimistic because the team never stopped fighting and never stopped playing the right way. I didn't feel like as they were losing those games early in the season that it was a coaching issue, because these were similar questions that we had when Brad Stevens was the coach. Obviously, Brad Stevens is now I believe the president of basketball operations or GM, I can't exactly remember, with the Boston Celtics. So I never thought it was Ime Udoka. I mean, he's been an assistant coach for forever, assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs. So, I mean, you don't get the Boston Celtics head coaching job and you don't know how to coach. So I was like, what the heck is going on with this team? But he's raved about this group. He said, incredible things about them. I think part of the real reason for their change or for their improvement on the season as it has gone has been their defense. I mean, since January 1st, Boston has led the NBA in defensive rating. They have allowed the fewest points, and they are second in blocks per game and third in opponent fast break points allowed. So, with that being the case, defense wins championships. Ask the 2004 Detroit Pistons. The Boston Celtics have turned it around. They are the statistically best defensive team in the league. So, I'm excited to see where they're going to go. Now, the East is tough. Like, the East is, you've got Milwaukee, you've got Miami who's formidable. Obviously, the Sixers, which I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit more in depth later. Who am I missing? The Nets, Kevin Durant just came back tonight. I think they won as well. They ended up they lost. They lost to the Heat. Oh, but Kevin Durant came back tonight. So, all those teams in the Eastern Conference are formidable and should make for a very, very interesting playoffs. I could definitely see the first rounds of the Eastern Conference playoffs being a bit more entertaining than the Western Conference playoffs as it shapes up right now. But we shall see. The next thing, let's transition a little bit, I want to talk about. I do want to talk about Ja Morant. I got to talk about Ja Morant and the week that he's been having. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick moment and tell you about one of my favorite fantasy football podcasts, Leather Brains. Leather Brains is the perfect mix between information and entertainment, and most importantly, it will give you a leg up in your fantasy football leagues. So this is a podcast that I talked about last week again, podcast hosted by two of my buddies from high school, Mr. Hunter Slapdog Amoruso and Mr. Matthew Scotty Holtmeyer. But you will not believe how well you'll be able to use their advice in both your dynasty and redraft leagues. So it's going to be pretty incredible if you tune in. It's relevant, it is hilarious, it is a must listen. So search for Leather Brains with a Z on YouTube or your favorite podcast app today. I promise you will not regret it. But, like I said, let's talk about Ja Morant. We have to talk about, I got to give him his respect, begrudgingly, I got to give him his respect. So I'm a big fan of Ja Morant and his game. If you listen to the show, if you're a frequent listener, you know I have highlighted him on multiple occasions throughout the year, deservedly so, because he has had an incredible season. And although it pains me to talk about this, but I got to talk about his 52-point performance against my team, the San Antonio Spurs. So, Ja Morant, if Derrick Rose and Allen Iverson had a kid, he would basically be Ja Morant. Like, the mix between his attitude and his athleticism, and he's arguably a better playmaker than both of those guys, but it's incredible. He hit one of the most insane buzzer beaters, one of the most impressive buzzer beaters that I've ever seen in an NBA game at halftime. And shout out to Steven Adams for that pass, but Steven Adams threw a full court pass to Ja Morant, and Ja caught it with 0.4 seconds left. And he had the wherewithal. He had to catch it, and he couldn't, go down with it and then shoot. Had to catch it in midair, turn his body, and shoot the ball while he was falling out of bounds, and made it at the halftime buzzer. Just an incredible, incredible shot. And that wasn't it. He also had arguably the dunk of the year so far, dunking on my boy, Jakob Poeltl, who is y'all don't be too hard on him. He is a good rim protector. I think he's top 5 in blocks for this season, but man, that dunk was terrible. That's a dunk that makes you want to retire, but that was a full-on poster. It was disrespectful. Ja Morant was disrespectful for that one. He didn't have to dunk on him like that, but like I said, arguably the best dunk that I have seen all season. I want to propose the question and I've talked about it before in previous episodes. Is Ja Morant a serious MVP candidate? Like, can we definitively talk about Ja Morant like he has a legitimate chance at winning MVP? The answer, I would say yes. Like, Ja Morant has been incredible all year, and the Grizzlies are overachieving. They are about I think a game behind the Golden State Warriors, and they might be second by the time this episode airs because I think the Golden State Warriors are playing the Dallas Mavericks right now, and they are not playing well. 78-88 with about 4 minutes left, and they're down by 10 points. So, I mean, we'll see. The Grizzlies also lost tonight, so I mean, they'll probably still be in third place. But they are overachieving. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody expected the Grizzlies to finish top 3 in the Western Conference with all, how, stacked the Western Conference is. But Ja Morant this season is averaging 27.6 points per game, 6.6 assists per game, and 5.9 rebounds per game. So the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant playing phenomenal basketball. I've talked about them multiple times on the show. But I would say Ja Morant has serious consideration for MVP along with Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and who was this? Oh, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I would say, well, I put DeMar DeRozan in there too. DeMar DeRozan's had an incredible season, keeping the Bulls afloat with all the injuries that they've had. So you've got 5 guys who all have a legitimate claim to MVP this year. Ja Morant, DeMar DeRozan, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But last transition that I want to make, second to last transition that I want to make for today's show, I want to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and James Harden. Everybody is not necessarily up in arms, but getting, I feel, a little bit too excited too early for this Harden and Embiid pairing. So it's going well so far, I will admit. James Harden, the trade to Philadelphia seems to be going well so far. Embiid and Harden, their games are meshing well together as well. Offensively, phenomenal. Their pick and roll is pretty deadly. Like the other day when they played the Knicks, like how many they shot like darn near 50 free throws between the two of them. Like, it was pretty crazy. They've only played 3 games together so far, so we've got a small sample size. In those 3 games, they beat the New York Knicks twice, which I could probably get a few buddies and, give the Knicks a run for their money right now. And they also beat Minnesota, who is in the 7th spot, I believe, in the Western Conference, or a pretty good Western Conference team. But during this stretch with the 3 games, Harden is averaging 27.3 points per game, 12.3 assists per game, and 9 rebounds per game. So averaging a near triple-double in the 3 games that he has played with the Philadelphia 76ers. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to seem like the Philadelphia 76ers aren't good. They are definitely good, and they are formidable, and they have a legitimate chance to come out of the Eastern Conference. However, there's something about this team that makes me feel a bit skeptical to definitively say that they're going to go on a deep run. Like, I need to see more from Tobias Harris. Tyrese Maxey, he's been playing really well, but, how long is that? Is that an anomaly, or is that going to be consistent come playoff time as well? You have Matisse Thybulle, who's still on the team, solid, but the Philadelphia 76ers bench leaves a little bit to be desired. We'll see what happens with that in terms of, if they go deeper into their bench, which most coaches end up using a shorter rotation during the playoffs anyway, because playoff, basketball a bit more intense, obviously, win or go home. But I'm a little skeptical. I mean, Harden and Embiid are both high emotion players, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be a high emotion player, but when the first piece of adversity hits for the 76ers team, what I'm worried about is how they're going to respond to it. So James Harden and Joel Embiid both have a history of not responding the best when it comes to the things that they have to deal with in adversity. So will there be finger pointing? Will it be like, oh, James Harden's like, hey, I'm not sacrificing, I'm not doing that. Is it going to be Joel Embiid? Is it going to be Joel Embiid calling dudes out on Twitter with his cryptic tweets, which can be pretty funny? But is it going to be him, saying things in the press conference that he shouldn't say? Joel Embiid is not one to mince words. the other thing too, another component of this, Doc Rivers has a track record of not being the best when it comes to personality management. Now, Doc Rivers is an excellent coach. Obviously won a championship with the Big Three in Boston. Did really, really well with the Clippers when Chris Paul and the Blake Griffin era, and when the Clippers lost their stars, taking Golden State to, what was that year? They took Golden State to 6 games, I believe it was, and Kevin Durant's like, I'm Kevin Durant. I think that was 2019. Yeah, that was the 2019 playoffs. But so Doc Rivers is a good coach, but isn't the best when it comes to personality management. We know how personalities ended up, in Los Angeles with the Clippers, and how that Big Three basically folded eventually in Boston. Part of that, obviously, Ray Allen left, but managing personalities, I believe, is a big component of being a solid coach in the NBA, because these are all grown men. They're getting paid. They all got families. Can't just tell them what to do. You got to meet them where they are. At least that's my opinion. That's how I feel successful coaches like your Phil Jacksons, like your Greg Popovich, guys like that who have been able to manage personalities pretty well. Even Eric Spoelstra, who's done a really good job. But time will tell. I would not say that they are the clear-cut favorite in the East that a lot of people are saying so far. Like I said, we've only seen a small sample size of these teams together. 3-0 in that stretch, so give them credit where credit's due. But I need to see them beat somebody other than the New York Knicks, who are terrible. So, that being the case, like I said, we'll see what happens. But last transition for today's show. Got to talk about the marquee matchups for this weekend and give a short recap for last weekend. So, if you remember correctly, 3 games I had picked out for last week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, were the Dallas Mavericks and the Utah Jazz, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Chicago Bulls, and the 76ers and the New York Knicks. And I did not do so well. I went 1-2 last week. So I had the Mavs beating the Jazz. That didn't happen. I had the I had the Bulls beating the Grizzlies. And that didn't happen either. I did end up picking the 76ers to beat the Knicks, but anybody could have picked that. Like I said, the Knicks have been terrible. And I know I was high on New York. I jumped on that bandwagon, and boy, did I jump off. So that brought my season total to 24-13. Not bad over 37 games. I mean, that's pretty good. 11 games over 500. I will take it, a 24-13 record. So this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games I want you to watch out for, games I want you to watch if you can. I've got the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls, Golden State Warriors taking on the Los Angeles Lakers in the Saturday game, and then the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics in the Sunday game. So I've got the Bucks beating the Bulls. I've got all road teams winning this weekend. I think it's going to be all wins for the road teams. So the Milwaukee Bucks are going to beat the Chicago Bulls. That's what I'm anticipating. I'm going to take the Golden State Warriors over the Lakers. Warriors have had a bit of a slump as well. They didn't have a great February at all. March is off to a rocky start for them too. And the Lakers have, like I mentioned earlier in the show, have been bad as well. But I'm going to pick the Warriors to win that game. And then I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Nets beating the Boston Celtics. The main reason for that, Kevin Durant is back now. I'm assuming he's going to play this Sunday. Jaylen Brown is dealing with an injury. So no Jaylen Brown. I'm going to pick the Brooklyn Nets to end up beating the Boston Celtics. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all the show I have for you today on this fine Friday. As I say every week, if you are watching on YouTube, if you could subscribe, like, leave comments. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from, I would appreciate like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like I said, it should be a fun weekend in the NBA, but whatever you are doing this weekend, I hope you do it to the best of your ability. I hope you do it safely and with the people that you love. But like I said, that is all the show I have. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I can't wait to see you next weekend, next Friday. Take care. I'll see you later.
Yeah, I told him I'ma hit it out of stands. I deserve another 100 bands. I deserve another 100 fans. Told them this was always in the plans. I just did it cause they said I can. Blowing euros when I'm down in France. Labels asking how I build a brand. Told them put a check up in my hands. Still got time, no cap. Made a few checks, but they all in the raps. Had a few friends, but they suck in the past. I don't even trip when I'm thinking about that. Hopped in the whip and we all in black. Shawty wanna ride to the hop in the back. 0 to 100, seen a